Well, I'm glad the Intelligence Committee is asking the president for evidence or proof of his very serious charge. Look, I have not seen anything to suggest that there is any proof or evidence that President Obama or someone in his administration, frankly, tapped Donald Trump's phone as a candidate. I haven't seen that evidence. What I do think could have happened is that the FBI or somebody in the United States government could have been surveilling certain Russian figures like the ambassador, and then somebody could have incidentally been picked up in a conversation like Michael Flynn apparently was, based on all the published reports. So I think that certainly could have happened, but I have not seen any evidence or proof that President Obama ordered a wiretap on Donald Trump. I haven't seen it, and I think it's incumbent upon the President Trump to provide any information that he has.
And Congressman, what if there isn't anything there? What if that proof never comes? What does that say about the president?
Well, I can't defend it. It's it certainly damages credibility. And I've always said, when you're president of the United States, anything you say is policy, or in this case, anything you tweet is seen as policy. And I think that is something that I think that this administration needs to work on. That presidential words do matter. That different people interpret them in different ways. Mm-hmm. There are people overseas who hear these words, and then it's hard to say that don't pay attention to the words. He doesn't always necessarily mean what he says. Well, that's not a great message. It does speak to credibility, and I think that the White House really does need to work on this.
Yeah, say what you mean and mean what you say. And on that point, let's talk about health care. Tom Price said this yesterday in talking about the Republican plan. He said, "I firmly believe," these are his words, "that nobody will be worse off financially with this Republican plan." Do you agree with him?
Well, I am trying to understand this bill better. I am concerned that people who are currently on the exchanges, for example, and are receiving subsidies, that whatever happens in this transition, if we move to tax credits, and I'm fine with tax credits, refundable and advanceable tax credits, but I want to make sure those tax credits are sufficient for people to buy coverage. And I'm not yet persuaded that that is the case. I understand the argument about more competition, prices of some policies will come down, but there seems to be a pretty big gap between the rate of subsidy for people currently in the ACA and the amount of tax credits available to those who would be coming into the new system. So I'm not ready to defend any particular claim that no one could be impacted, because I think that some possibly will be impacted.
Yeah, I mean, do you fear that this could be the 2017 version of if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor?
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far, but I am not going to make any statements. I'll say I will not make any draconian or Sherman-esque type statements on health care. I think we've all learned a hard lesson on that, and President Obama certainly did. If you like your doctor, you can keep him. Well, that certainly didn't work out to be the case, and he made a lot of big claims too about premiums are going to come down by a significant amount of money when in fact they've gone up. So I'm being very careful not to make those types of statements, other than the fact that I want to make sure that people are not going to be impacted negatively in any type of a transition.
If the final version I know you care a lot about the Medicaid expansion. It affects a lot of people in your district. If the final version rolls back this sunset date, cutting off the Medicaid expansion sooner, can you support the bill?
Well, I've said to many folks that taking that date back from 2020 to 2018 will be a huge problem, and that will cost votes. Like I said, I have concerns with the bill now as it is. With the 2020 date, taking it back to 2018 is a non-starter for many of us. And I don't think I'm just speaking for myself on that point. Yeah. I've spoken to many House Republicans who feel as strongly as I do that that is just going to be a very serious blow to this bill.
Are you a no right now as it stands?
Well, I'm putting myself down as undecided right now. Like I said, I have some concerns and reservations based on what I'm reading. I do want to see what the CBO score says. I want to see what the CBO score says. It's going to come out this week, and maybe as early as today. Yeah. And from what I'm told, we're being prepared that this might not be a very good report. But I guess we'll wait to see.
The CBO score, if it does come out today, you know, the new OMB director, your former colleague, Mick Mulvaney, he had some interesting things to say about this CBO score, basically saying that sometimes, in his words, we ask them to do stuff they're not capable of doing, and estimating the impact of a bill of this size probably isn't the best use of their time. So the White House might not be taking these numbers seriously when they come out. Do you take them seriously?
Yes, I do. But I would say I think Budget Director Mulvaney, who I've known, I've worked with him, he's a friend. I would say this, that the CBO often has to make a lot of assumptions.
Yeah.
And some of them aren't very good assumptions, and that's not their fault. I mean, they have to deal with what's presented to them. So they have to make assumptions. And those assumptions can, of course, then are factored into their calculations.
But you take what CBO says,
yeah.
You take it seriously, and that factors into your decision-making process, right?
Yes, it does. And I will look at their methodology and their analysis, recognizing that some of those assumptions, and some of those assumptions are not going to be good ones. And again, not necessarily their fault. It's because of what information has been provided to them. So, but I do take their recommendations seriously. I don't take them as gospel, but I take them very seriously.
One final question for you. Senator Tom Cotton, he has been outspoken about the process that the House has been going about with regard to this bill. And he said very clearly yesterday, he's afraid if the House votes for this bill, it will cost Republicans the majority in the House. Do you share that fear?
Well, I guess anything's possible. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with my friend Tommy Cotton, but it's certainly a possibility. I would also, I say the bigger issue that Senator Cotton has raised is this, that he says that this legislation is dead on arrival in the Senate. And that is a great concern to me. I think he is probably correct that this bill, if it were to pass the House, that the Senate would certainly not pass it in this form.
You think there's a real possibility, though, that it could cost you the majority in the House?
Oh, look, going into the midterm elections in 2018, Republicans will be at a bit of a disadvantage. You know, historically, the party of the president usually suffers some losses in the midterm. So that's for a whole host of reasons. Could health care be a contributing factor to that? Sure, it could, but so could any number of other things. But the biggest driver of that is simply history. And the history is that the party of the president in the midterms typically doesn't do very well in those elections. So that's my analysis.
That's the way it is. Well, these are one of those votes that will that do go down in history, and that's why you're looking so closely before you cast a vote on this bill or whatever bill ends up hitting the floor. Congressman, great to have you. Thanks for coming in.
Hey, Kate, great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
For us, a Republican congressman facing cries of racism for his tweets about civilization and this, quote, someone else's babies. And then there's also his attempt to explain himself. We'll discuss. That's ahead. Plus, a filmmaker fighting back now against claims that he selectively and unfairly edited never-before-seen video of Michael Brown before his shooting death. Hear his explanation.
People confuse nice and kind, but they're different. Nice tells you what you want to hear, but kind is honest. This bar is made with cranberries and almonds. So, guess what? We call it cranberry almond. Give kind a try.